The room was silent. Not the calm, comforting kind of silence, but a heavy, suffocating one that pressed against the chest and made every second feel unbearably long. There were no flashing cameras, no screaming fans, no music echoing through the walls. Only the faint mechanical sound of medical equipment and the still body of a man lying motionless. That man was Elvis Presley. For 5 agonizing hours, Elvis was unconscious, suspended in a fragile space between life and death. No one in that room knew if he would ever open his eyes again. This was the night that nearly ended a legend. To the world, Elvis Presley was larger than life. He was the king of rock and roll, the voice that reshaped music forever, the man who electrified stages and commanded crowds with a single movement. He wasn't just a performer, he was a symbol, a phenomenon, a force that seemed unstoppable. Millions saw only the confidence, the charisma, the power. What they didn't see was the exhaustion hiding behind the fame, the pressure that never eased, and the loneliness that followed him everywhere. Years of relentless touring, impossible expectations, and constant scrutiny had taken a toll on his body and his mind. The same fire that pushed him to the top was slowly burning him from the inside. And on this night, everything finally caught up with him. The night itself didn't begin with drama. There was no collapse under stage lights, no scream from the crowd, no immediate sense that something terrible was about to happen. It was quiet, private, almost ordinary. Those closest to Elvis would later say that something felt different. He seemed distant, weighed down by a kind of fatigue that sleep alone could never fix. He spoke less than usual, moved more slowly, and carried a heaviness in his eyes that worried the people around him. Still, no one imagined how close they were to losing him. At some point during the night, Elvis lost consciousness. It wasn't gradual, there was no warning. One moment he was there, breathing, present. The next, his body went limp. His breathing became shallow, irregular. His pulse weakened. Panic spread instantly. People rushed to him, calling his name, shaking him gently at first, then desperately. "Elvis!" There was no response. They called again, louder this time, fear creeping into every voice. Still nothing. In those terrifying moments, everyone understood this wasn't simple exhaustion or deep sleep. This was something far more serious. Doctors were called immediately. Minutes felt like hours as everyone waited, helpless, watching a man who once dominated the world now lying completely still. When medical professionals finally arrived, the atmosphere shifted, but the fear only deepened. Elvis was unresponsive. He didn't react to sound. He didn't react to touch. His body was alive, but barely. They worked quickly, checking his vital signs, stabilizing his breathing, monitoring his heart. Every movement was precise, urgent. Then came the words that froze the room. He was unconscious. No one asked how long he might remain that way, because no one wanted to hear what that could mean. Time lost all meaning. 5 hours passed, though it felt like an eternity. 5 hours of waiting, watching, and holding on to fragile hope. 5 hours where the line between survival and tragedy grew thinner with every passing minute. People sat in silence, afraid to speak, afraid that even a whisper might somehow make things worse. Some prayed quietly. Some stared at the floor, unable to look at him. Others couldn't take their eyes off his chest, desperately counting each shallow rise and fall, terrified that one breath might be his last. Doctors did everything they could, but even they couldn't offer certainty, and that uncertainty was the most frightening part of all. Behind closed doors, fear took on a deeper, more painful shape. This wasn't about losing a superstar or an icon. This was about losing a human being, a friend, a son, someone they loved. The fame, the records, the legacy, none of it mattered in that moment. What mattered was whether Elvis Presley would survive the night. One doctor later admitted that the situation was critical, that the outcome could easily have gone the other way. Everyone in that room knew it. This wasn't a scare meant to pass quietly. This was real, and it was dangerous. While everyone waited, Elvis lay somewhere unreachable. What happens in the mind when the body shuts down like that? Was he dreaming? Was he aware of the voices around him? Was he fighting to come back? No one knows. But those closest to him would later say it felt as if he was somewhere far away, beyond their reach. The man who once commanded every stage now seemed lost in a darkness no one else could enter, facing the most personal and terrifying battle of his life, completely alone. Then, after hours that felt endless, something changed. It was subtle at first, so small that no one was sure it was real. A slight movement, a deeper breath. Someone leaned closer, barely daring to hope. His name was spoken softly, almost like a prayer. Elvis. Seconds stretched, heavy with tension. Then his eyes began to move. Slowly, weakly, but undeniably. Elvis Presley was waking up. No one cheered, no one shouted. The room fell into another kind of silence, one filled with disbelief and overwhelming relief. Tears flowed freely, unchecked. Doctors moved quickly again, but this time their urgency was mixed with cautious hope. Elvis was alive, fragile, confused, exhausted, but alive. After 5 hours suspended between life and death, he had come back. Waking up was only the beginning. Elvis was disoriented, struggling to understand where he was and what had happened. His body had been pushed beyond its limits. Doctors made it clear that this night was not to be dismissed or forgotten. It was a warning. A line had been crossed. If nothing changed, the next time could be fatal. For Elvis, this night stayed with him long after his body recovered. It lingered in his thoughts, a quiet reminder of how close he had come to the edge. This moment shattered the illusion that Elvis Presley was invincible. Beneath the legend, beneath the crown, was a man with limits. A man who could feel pain, who could grow exhausted, who could break under pressure. For 5 terrifying hours, the world came dangerously close to losing him, and those who witnessed it would never see him the same way again. That night wasn't just a medical emergency, it was a turning point. It revealed the true cost of fame, the relentless pressure to be perfect, and the loneliness that often hides behind the spotlight. It showed that even the greatest legends walk a thin line between strength and collapse. After that night, one question lingered quietly in the minds of those who were there. How many times can someone survive on willpower alone? Elvis continued to perform. He continued to smile for the world. He continued to give everything he had to his fans. But the people who sat in that silent room during those 5 hours never forgot how close they came to saying goodbye. For them, time had stopped, and when it started again, nothing felt the same. For 5 hours, the future of a legend hung in balance. For 5 hours, the world held its breath without even knowing it. And when Elvis finally opened his eyes, it wasn't just a man waking up. It was a reminder that behind every icon, behind every myth, there is a human heart, fragile, exhausted, and mortal. That night became the most terrifying night of Elvis's life, a night that revealed the truth behind the legend, and a night the world never truly saw, but that changed everything forever.